Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. In this video I'd like to discuss the news that Michael Gove lied in trying to attack the Road Haulage Association when they estimated that post-Brexit trade was down 68% by volume. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So when Michael Gove was still Brexit Minister, before he was replaced with an unelected bureaucrat, he was trying to toe the party line and suggest that trade was back up to pre-Brexit levels. Yes, we had a few dodgy weeks, but it's all right again now. Only problem is that this is a load of nonsense. The Road Haulage Association, representing the actual lorries carrying this freight, said that they estimated volumes of trade to be down 68%. In response, Michael Gove's office said that flow was about 95% one way and 96% the other, so almost back to normal. Now, I said at the time the government were deliberately trying to confuse the number of lorries with the amount of freight. Because if loads more of the lorries are making these journeys are empty, then the number of lorries has not actually got very much to do with the amount of trade. An empty lorry isn't trading anything in the direction it's emptying. But if the Road Haulage Association, you know, the people actually making these journeys, reckon a 68% drop, or that trade by volume is about 32% of where it was, about a third, and the government are actually saying it's actually back up to 95%, well then fine. May we see the figures, Mr. Gove? What? The figures. You said it's up to 95%, that's just a drop of about 5%. That must be based on some data. May we see it? Oh, no, not just yet, no. I see. And now the Statistics Authority, whose role it is to make sure that stats disseminated to the public are not completely made up, have written to Gove's office to basically call the rebuttal a load of crap. I believe the way it was phrased was serious concerns at the way the department had used data to rebut the Road Haulage Association's information. But it has to be polite. Apart from anything else, Michael Gove is actually the minister in charge of the Statistics Authority. Not that it would matter, public bodies obviously should be polite even when calling out lying government. But it did amuse me to think of this official writing a letter to tell his boss he was full of crap. And they're not accusing Michael Gove's Cabinet Office of lying as such. MPs aren't allowed to call the government liar, so civil servants certainly aren't. So, although occasionally the odd one will call them a truth twister, a lying, what was it? I've forgotten the phrase now. They never caught them. But anyway, so what this said is that the department is using unpublished data. It advises that if you're going to make statements based on unpublished data, which you shouldn't really do very often, then the data should be published at the same time as the statement is made for verification purposes. Obviously, this will not occur because the reason the data is unpublished is because it doesn't exist. It will never be published. It will never exist. Trade is down. We have a daily litany of businesses telling us how hard it is to export to the EU now. You know, of the businesses saying that they can't actually export their goods anymore. We have the stories of goods being sent back because there's something wrong with the consignment. And I'm not just talking about the paperwork, because that would get better. You know, people will get better at filling out the paperwork. That can be put right. What a lot of exporters are discovering is that all the different EU member states have their own rules on imports of goods. You know, being sovereign nations and all that. The EU single market has a common set of rules, yes, but they only apply to other members of the single market, benefits of members of the club. But if you're not in the single market, you don't trade under those conditions. You're exporting to individual countries. And what might be allowed to Spain may not be allowed to Poland, for example. And there have been a lot of stories of companies having not realised this and having their products sent back. Oh, well, we sent a load off to Portugal saying that was all fine, but now we're trying to send it to Italy and they've got a problem with it. You know, and yet on the one hand, we could say that these businesses should have done more research ahead of Brexit. But at the same time, if you've only ever traded as a member of the EU single market, you might not be aware of how it worked outside. You may imagine that you could still trade according to those rules just with a load more paperwork. And yeah, you understand that certain things aren't allowed anymore. After all, the government did nothing to try and explain to businesses how it really works. But the point is, of course, trade is well down. I wouldn't even need to see figures to know that trade is down by way more than 5%. I'd need to see figures to know how much it's down by. But the government are trying to claim it's only down 5% now. That's rubbish. Every single day we have articles of more and more companies having their story told of how exports are down. I could do a video every single day about a new set of businesses that are now getting their story told. You know, it's in every sector. It's all over the country. Now, I don't know if it is a 68% reduction, you know, because the Road Haulage Association had to come up with that. I don't know how accurate it is. They will have a harder time judging these things than the government, who could and should log everything that passes across the border in both directions. The Road Haulage Association only represents British hauliers, for example. But it is at least consistent with reality. And you may wonder why the government are lying about the figure in such a ridiculous way. Why not at least make the figure credible? You know, is it just their habit of lying? I think part of it comes down to this. There are those of us paying attention. We will know that the government are obviously lying. I mean, if they were to try and at least say something like it's only 30% down, we might go, oh, well, maybe, I don't know. But the government aren't seeking to persuade us, so they don't need to come up with a credible figure. They know they have no chance of persuading us. There are others who will just see two sides of an argument. They won't critically consider the facts around the case. They will just see one side saying 68% reduction, another side saying 5% reduction rather, and conclude that one side is wrong. They'll go, well, the government have the actual facts, so their figure's probably right. And that'll be all there is to it. It's a lie designed to give comfort to those who either identify with the Conservatives in our ultra-tribalist UK right now, or can't be asked to think about it, or don't know how to think about it. But I think it also shows something else. The government are afraid of the truth. There's no defending the loss of trade by saying, oh, but it's worth it for sovereignty, which we now have less of. Or, yeah, but we'll make up for it with trade with New Zealand and the CPTPP. If they thought they could distract us with tales of sovereignty and Pacific trade, they'd just accept the figures. Oh, yeah, it's down quite a long way. It's not down as far as that. That's what they'd probably say. It's not actually down 68%. But it's significantly down, sure, absolutely. But, you know, not to worry, it's going to sort itself out before long because we've got all this stuff coming online. They don't believe they can do that. Where this government lies, you can see what they're afraid of. They hide things they're afraid of behind the lies. And where they tell the biggest lies, that's to cover up their greatest fears. So that would indicate that they fear people seeing the huge reduction in trade, because they know we're not going to make up that trade with New Zealand. They don't believe that they can excuse it, so they pretend it doesn't exist. But it does exist. And so we know what the line of attack has to be. We have an organisation that has estimated the drop in trade. It is for the government to publish figures that refute it. Until they do so, then the 68% reduction stands as the best figure we have. Some data will have to emerge. Economic data will appear, but that's of limited use because the government will confuse that with COVID, because some of that economic data will be COVID related. We need data that shows actual trade figures. Can the government hide them forever? Well, no, actually, because bear in mind that our export data is someone else's import data. These data will become available from the published figures of various EU countries at some point. So we already have some from Italy, for example. I'll talk about that in the next video. And it might not be soon. You know, the details of trade data, we don't normally need it very quickly. You know, usually you wait for the whole year to happen and then during the next. So like at the moment, we may be expecting over the course of this year for 2020 trade data to be published and analysed. We wouldn't expect 2021 data to be fully analysed until 2022. So the government can hide what's going on inside the country. A lot harder to do this with international activities because we are going to get that data. Because like I said, our export data, someone else's import data, and that someone else doesn't really have a reason to hide it. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.